The Huna Code in Religions by Max Freedom Long. Chapter 1. In all parts of the world, the knowledge of astronomy was mixed with the totems so that the sky of the night became filled with the outlines of starry creatures. Snakes became great dragons. Invisible powers, as in the wind and storms, became gods. The symbology was developed in which light and darkness were personified. The sun and moon were deified and worshipped both for themselves and as symbols of degrees of light and darkness. The year was divided into 12 parts, and some parts were associated with the creatures of the totem class in early Egypt. At some point in these formative millenniums, the ancestors of the Polynesians must either have developed their lore or had it given to them through some form of revelation, perhaps by an advanced spirit who taught through a living medium. The first definite indication that such a body of knowledge as that of Huna was known and used to be found in a certain classical form of the totem pole, which was used in New Zealand up to fairly modern times. This totem pole represents the belief that man has three spirits, the most advanced of which is a dual entity made up of the combined male and female unit. The lowest figure on the totem pole is usually large and gross. Above it, and often with its legs folded around its neck and chest of the low figure, is a second and more human figure, while above it, often with a tiny body, is a figure with two faces placed back to back on a single head. The number 3 is made prominent by having only 3 fingers on each hand of the lower pair of figures. If the guess is correct that the Kahuna people at a very early time shared an outer and an inner system of religious beliefs with other clans and peoples with whom they made contact, then we can say that their inner or secret knowledge of the 3 selves of man, the highest being dual, was not passed on in the outer teachings. Because of this, the spread of the use of totem poles while covering a large part of the world, especially North America, did not include the knowledge of the dual self, as represented on the original poles of the Kahunas. Modern totem poles may contain up to 8 figures, some of the lower ones animals. Modification of the 3-self totem pole was the carved scepter or wand of the priestly ruler or magician. This became also a staff and an Aaron's rod. In the Old Testament, we have magic performed in which a rod was used. Moses used his rod to smite the rock in the wilderness and to bring forth a flow of water, while in the early Huna lore there was taught the doctrine that man is a trinity of 3 selves or spirits. There was also taught the doctrine of duality, which covered the secret that the third and most evolved spirit in the makeup of the triune man was dual, that is, made of a united male and female pair of selves or spirits. And then it says in brackets, we will return to this later. In my book, The Secret Science Behind Miracles, I have presented in detail the beliefs of the Polynesians concerning their clan totems, also the magical practices in which sharks and turtles can be called, even by children standing on a cliff and reciting the ancient ritual chants. Owing to the surprisingly complete and complicated system of beliefs found in even the earliest traces of Huna, it seems quite possible that in it were developed the first rituals by which the intelligences acting as group souls to guide the evolution of living creatures might be persuaded to control their charges for the benefit of men. The nature of the group spirit idea also included intelligences presiding over winds and rain. Whether or not the first rites of magical approach to such beings were developed by the ancestors of the Polynesians, we find that such rites are spread throughout the world. American Indians perform their rain dance in Arizona with live rattlesnakes held in their teeth, and later release the snakes after instructing them to carry the request for rain to the gods of rain. Similar to the selection of an animal, fish, or bird by the Huna people to stand as a friend or helper of a family or clan, is the selection of a totem nature spirit to watch over individuals. With the American Indians, the older children were often encouraged to try to make contact with the oversoul of some creature so that it could be called upon to give help when needed. The healing practices of some of the medicine men resembled closely the modern seances in which spirits materialize and winds are made to blow, people are levitated, and apports are brought. One report on a healing ceremony, written in 1840, described a bear spirit as coming when called and making a great commotion inside the large teepee in which a badly wounded warrior was to be healed, with the result that the healing was swiftly and miraculously accomplished. The use of a totem or clan animal to identify a tribe has been customary from the dawn of history, and even in our present materialistic and scientific age, we carefully preserve the practice. The British totem emblem is the lion, the Russian the bear, while that of the United States is the bald eagle. One thing has been noted by famous scholars in studying the ancient religions, and this is that once a belief has taken form, it tends to spread and to undergo changes. The beliefs become symbolized and develop rituals. One belief after another is added, with the accumulation usually lacking a rational overall system. The nearest to a system which is to be found is the formation of the myth, but myths touch only on fragments of belief and cover only a fraction of the gods and spirits. The lasting quality of these beliefs is amazing. Even when the original significance of a ritual or symbol has been forgotten, it is carefully preserved in one form or another. Because each new religious myth or belief is manufactured from pieces borrowed from those which were older, it's quite probable that parts of Huna were added to current symbols, beliefs, and myths in Egypt. In 1882, a remarkable student of ancient religions, Gerald Massey, Massey, wrote, "The Jews were caught and confined in a complete network of symbolism so closely woven round them that they were cramped and catalepsed into rigidity from long keeping of the same postures, and the interstices are also too narrow for breath to pass through. So it is with the Mohammedan and Parsi ritual of rigid rule and ceremonial routine, a religion of form in which the trivial is stereotyped for all time because of its mystical, that is, emblematic character. The world of thought is thronged with false births and malformations which are entirely bred of perverted typology. The theological doctrines of evil, the depravity of nature, the fallen nature of the flesh have no other basis and no other beginning. Religion is itself sick and daily dying in the process of unliving and sloughing off that which has been imposed upon it by a misinterpretation of symbolism. It is not the ancient legends that lie. The creators of these did not deal falsely with us. The falsehood is solely the result of ignorantly mistaking mythology for revelation and historical truths. They did not teach geology in the ancient mysteries. The Christian world assumed that they did, and therefore was found in opposition to scientific geology. Let me read that again. They did not teach geology in the ancient mysteries. The Christian world assumed that they did, and therefore it was found in opposition to scientific geology. They did not teach the historic fall of man in the myths. Theologists have assumed that they did, and consequently were forced to be utterly opposed to the ascent of man, unveiled by the doctrine of evolution. The earliest limits of the human mind have been reimposed upon it as the latest in the name of religion, until it looks at last as if all that faith accepted is arrayed against and at enmity with everything that science affirms to be true. Nor are the symbolists insane as they appear to Max Muller, Muller. There is nothing of insanity, nothing irrational in the origins of mythology when the subject is considered in the light of evolution. The irrationality arises from and remains with the non-evolutionist view. It may be affirmed here, for it will be proved later, that the ancient wisdom is not made up of guesses at truth, but is composed of truths which were carefully ascertained and verified, that the chief character of the myths in their primitive phases is a most perfect congruity, and that they have the simplicity of nature itself. And that's the end of that quote. And this is from The Natural Genesis, Volume 1, pages 13 to 14. To one reading the above excerpts, it would almost seem at this late discovery date that Massey had in mind the ancient Huna system and its doctrine of evolution, or the body of beliefs which have been known so slightly in outer circles and which have been so misinterpreted. And that concludes Chapter 1. Chapter 2 is entitled Huna in the Ancient Egypt. And now I'm going to ask you a favor. Okay, I found this interesting that they said that the British totem is the lion, the Russian, the bear, the United States, the bald eagle. Now, I'm in Canada, and I believe ours is the chickadee, which is a very small, lovely little bird who has a wonderful song, but is not very impressive. Now, if you're listening to this from some country other than, I don't know, the ones I've mentioned, could you leave a note in the comments below and tell me what country and what the animal emblem is representing your country? That would be so interesting. Thanks. Till soon.